or I never left Armagh until I was nearly 19. Didn't go anywhere. I loved the town, loved Armagh, and I thought I'd never leave. Grew up there till I was 21, and like a lot of young men around that time, they went to London for work. Went to work in the building trade, earn a few pound, just have a laugh. If they were coming down the road, you had to get off the road out of their way because they'd just drive over the top of you. No lie. And then no lights, no real rules of the road either. Cows and everything wandering around in the middle of it, and people and that, and they just step out in front of you, and you have to avoid them. It's your fault if you hit them, even though they jumped out in front of you. But I had a share in it. Me and Tom McGarr bought it between us. So he owned half of it and I owned half of it, and it was to get us to Blackwater Disco, the under 18 disco.
Hello, this is Connor Neeson and I am this week's Armagh I podcast host. You've just heard the voice of Niall McCart. He's based in London with the Retrospective Scooter Garage, and he has been developing electronic conversion kits for old Vespas and Lambrettas. I caught up with him in the last week to chat about growing up in Armagh, about his first scooter, which he part owned and did make it to Blackwater town. And I'm also speaking to him about the craziest situations he's found himself in whilst riding a scooter. Spoilers, there's cows involved. And we're also speaking about the move to London, the conversion kits, and how they've taken off in the first few years after he set up business. Well, hello Niall, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Connor.
So you're actually joining us, although we haven't been able to get any footage because of technical issues, but you're joining us from your scooter shop in London.
Yes, I'm in East London, Walthamstow, where the shop is these days.
But obviously you grew up quite a distance away from London, back here in Armagh.
Yes, I was in Armagh grew up there till I was 21, and like a lot of young men around that time, they went to London for work. Went to work in the building trade, earn a few pound, just have a laugh. And, that was back in the late 80s. And went with a couple of boys from Armagh. And, what it was like. We're just young men out for a good time. Just, having a drink and a laugh, and spending our hard-earned money.
And so what are your earliest memories of growing up in Armagh then? What kind of area were you grew up in?
Oh, I'm from Druids Villas, and I went to St. Bridget's secondary school, just up behind me. Very good memories of it. And St. Malachy's primary school, where my dad went and that. My mom's from just out the road from Kelladon. And I never left London, or I never left Armagh until I was nearly 19. Didn't go anywhere. I loved the town, loved Armagh, and I thought I'd never leave. And, when I did leave to go to London eventually, I really missed it. Really missed the family and the friends and the whole thing that Armagh is, growing up in it, going to the Drumsill and going around the town, going out fishing and hunting and anything the boys and that back home we'd all be doing. Missed all that when I went to London, but sure, I thought I'd be home in no time, and I'd only spend a year or 2 or 3, and then I'd be back in Armagh. Used to go home every other week, every other month or a few weeks for a wee refreshing, to go home and see my ma and family and that. But
get the washing done.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and obviously it must have been quite a cultural change, or a shock for yourself moving from Armagh to London, although both cities slightly different.
Oh, well, look, back then at the time, it was, the troubles were still, you know, all going on. And Northern Irish boys in London just had a bit of a hard time with, snide remarks, and a lot of people didn't trust you and all them jokes about bombs and all this here. But we were there, we stuck together and, worked on the building sites together. And it was all right, but, you felt more at home when, with your own in London because of that isolation, if you like. And
Yeah, I think it's that thing of we tend to travel well at least and settle in most places. People from this part of the world.
oh yeah, well, the Irish are all over. In any corner of the world, you'll find an Irish bar, and an Irishman set that bar up. So we are well travelled.
Yeah.
That's the
So
other.
you said so. Go ahead.
No, that's the other reason I left too, to travel, because one of my biggest passions in life was to travel and see the world, and London is the great springboard to the world. You can hop into Europe, but you can hop anywhere on a plane out of London to, New Zealand or India or America. It was all the things I did eventually get to do, and that's what opportunities that gave me. But yeah, number one passion for me was traveling thereafter.
Yeah. And what kind of places did you get to then in your youth?
Well, I used to work as a motorcycle courier in London. Eventually, after the building trade bored me a bit too much, and I met up with a lot of New Zealand fellas from New Zealand, Kiwis they're called, and them boys were great. They had no fear. They'd go anywhere, and they were from farms in New Zealand, and they came to London to work hard for 6 months and then go travelling around Europe for 6 months. And then boys would head off around Europe and just go to see whatever they could see before they'd have to return home to New Zealand and probably take up the farm that their father was going to leave them, and they'd probably never leave that farm ever again. But when they were in their early 20s, they really enjoyed life, and they inspired me to do what they were doing and head off to Africa or India or any corner of the world where you just wanted to see what it was like over in that part of the world and what goes on there. So
And presumably you brought the scooters with you along to those places, or rented up a scooter when you were there. What's kind of the craziest area that you've rode a scooter?
well, I once went to India and I flew into Delhi, and I went out to a scooter shop and bought a scooter. And then this is the early 90s, about 92. And I basically bought a scooter in India and started driving it around India. Went down south, went up north to Varanasi, went across the border into Nepal, up to Kathmandu, and drove it around India for about 3 or 4 months, just traveling around India on this scooter. They have loads of scooters in India, by the way. There's covered in scooters. Vespas, like a Vespa copy, called a
Yeah.
Baja, but it's a Vespa. But that
Uh,
was one such venture out on it.
and what were the roads? Was it more similar to Armagh or the back end roads, country roads than
No,
London?
it was a bit rough. It was a very rough, dangerous roads. There was a lot of lorry drivers on those roads that if they were coming down the road, you had to get off the road out of their way because they'd just drive over the top of you. No lie. And then no lights, no real rules of the road either. You cows and everything wandering around in the middle of it, and people and that, and they just step out in front of you, and you have to avoid them. It's your fault if you hit them, even though they jumped out in front of you. But it's a mad place, a mad place.
Yeah. So as you said, you did the building trade for a few years and then moved on to this courier. But obviously, I know, but you probably want to explain a wee bit more that your passion for scooters went, started well before you arrived in London.
Oh well, yeah. Initially, when I was a young mod, in the mod culture growing up in Armagh. Um, that that was the connection to the scooters to begin with. So at the time, the music culture, mods and rockers and punks and skinheads and all that. You're a young man, you get into that sort of music scene uh, with the Jam or the Who and all them, and you become a mod. You have to have a title. You have to be part of a cult or a gang, don't you? So you're in this mod gang, and they all ride scooters. So you get a scooter, and you're running around town on the scooter. It's like a fashion accessory, You do it with all the lights and mirrors, but then that becomes boring after a year or two, and you leave that behind. And there's something about the scooter. It never left me. You enjoyed riding it. It got you around. You could go places on it. You go different places to other people that are into the scooters as well. And there was a scene that came after the mod scene called just the scooterist scene, and there was scooterists who would just go to scooter rallies all over the coast, in Ireland and England, where you go across to a seaside town like Blackpool or Morecambe or Great Yarmouth, and they'd all be there, all the scooterists, for the one weekend, a long weekend of just partying and having a great time, just being into the same thing. These Vespas and Lambrettas scooters, and that was a whole underground scene back in the 80s and early 90s where we had good laugh. Me and a few boys from Armagh would go to these.
Yeah, and obviously your first scooter mustn't have been much to look at, was it? I'm sure you saved up a lot of money for it.
I didn't even own it outright. I had a share in it. Me and Tom McGarr bought it between us. So he owned half of it and I owned half of it. And it was to get us to Blackwater Disco, the under 18 disco. So one weekend he'd drive out and I'd be the passenger. So I had a bottle of cider that cost £1, old English cider. And he was the designated driver. Then it was 50p into the disco. And I think it was 50p for the petrol there and back. So that was a great night out there on a Sunday night on this little scooter. I think me and Tom still have a scooter between us because I think we swapped that scooter for another scooter. And then that meant we still had shares in a scooter. And I think when I left for London, I left that scooter with Tom. He might still have it in the backyard, but the last I heard it was shot by a double-barreled shotgun by Damien Hughes one day. He leaned over the fence and shot it, Tom said. So I think it got scrapped after that.
I couldn't be moving too far now. No, and so yes, so that's kind of where this idea for the scooters was, and you got into the courier business then because you probably seen it as a chance of riding around on a scooter all day.
Well, when you're working on the building trade, and I was a painter and decorator, and you're a bit bored with that after a while. That just you grow to hate the scrubbing the paint off your hands and that. I seen these boys in London driving around on motorbikes, and they were delivering packages, and I thought to myself, them boys just driving around all day and getting paid for it. I thought that's a job for me, definitely. So I had my scooter. I had this other scooter. I got it sent over from Armagh. So I jumped on it and I got this job. There was no problem getting it either as a dispatch rider or a motorcycle courier. But I was on my scooter, of course. And I was just delivering parcels around London on this bike. And it wasn't a bad job. It was a heyday of it, really. You join a company. That's where all the Kiwi boys were, the New Zealanders, and they'd take on anybody as long as you could ride, and you soon learned your way around London. You get to learn it, and delivering these parcels, rain, hail or snow, and at the same time you have to look after your bike and keep it in good nick, otherwise you don't earn any money. So I got to learn how to fix them and keep them on the road, and we would drive from 8 in the morning till 8 at night delivering packages, 5 days a week, and then Saturday you're fixing your bike all day to make sure it makes it through the following week's work.
Yeah. And so, and then that follows on. Really, you kind of picked up these skills of looking after the scooter because that was your livelihood and making sure they were going. And although sometimes they obviously some of the more elaborate scooters are tricky or difficult or would run into a lot of problems. But that led you then to begin working with the garage then.
Yeah, no, 10 years of being a motorcycle courier on the scooters, and just getting fed up with sitting in the rain or riding around in the cold got to me. For when I got to the end of my 20s, I got a job in a scooter shop fixing them, which I could do by then I could do it no problem. So I was working in this scooter shop. I met another New Zealander. I met this fella. He was going to Italy in a van, and he was buying these old Vespas and Lambrettas in Italy. This is the late 90s, and he would take them back to London and just fix them up and sell them. And that was great. I was helping him do that. We'd get in the van and go to Italy, bring them back, fix them up and sell them from his shop. But after a year or two, you think, well, I could do this, and I did. End up just going out on my own, buying my own van and going to Italy. And then for the next, 10 years, 15 years, I was going to Italy, buying bikes, scooters, Vespas, Lambrettas, bringing them back, restoring them and fixing them, and then you're selling them to people, and then they bring them back to you for service and repairs and whatever, and so on and so forth. And that's just how the shop started and how I got going with it. Obviously, to begin with, I just had to start from my own garden shed and then progress from there into a wee garage I rented, and then from there to have a couple of fellas work for me and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And obviously that's the thing, you're going over to Italy where, there's so many Vespas and Lambrettas scooters, and they're probably not as common, but do you think there's still that allure of them, that kind of continental feel that drives people to pick those over other modes of transport?
Well, the Vespas and the Lambrettas, they went to every corner of the planet, and they were the most popular two-wheel scooter transport, if you like, because of their Italian style and flair. That's what people like, with Italians, as being Italians, they always had an eye for aesthetics, and the design of them appeals to, I think everyone in the world over, even if they're not really into them, they will look at a Vespa or an old Lambretta and say that's really nice. That's a beautiful, work of art, and who could say that, some of those old 60s Vespas and Lambrettas aren't nice looking ornaments. They almost, some of them want to own them, but they dare not. They're not bikers, or they're not really into two-wheel transport, but they still appreciate the design, and that still stands true with them today. It's always been that way for me, but a lot of other people in recent years, I would say in the last 15, 20 years, I think they got really much more popular with not just people who are into a scene like a cult or a scooter scene or a mod scene or anything like that. Just normal people that appreciate the design of these things would love one,
Yeah. And I suppose it's that thing as well, the practicality thing of keeping a car on the road. Perhaps the scooter's a wee bit easier to keep on the road, and storing it and things like that, and just the nature of traffic hour and things like that probably pushing people more towards scooters.
Well, yeah, certainly in London and I'm sure around the country, it does cost a lot more to run a car in London. So you can't park it anywhere. There's restrictions. You can't really go anywhere into town because of a congestion zone they have now. And now what's coming into force is a ULEZ zone, ultra low emissions zone. It is, which they're trying to keep the air cleaner in London, and all that's against you in the car. And certainly in traffic, heavy traffic, a two-wheeler is easier to get through the traffic. easier to park, free to park, free to, go into town. It doesn't cause congestion. It doesn't cause, well, it does cause pollution, but there's cleaner versions of them, and that's the incentive for people now. And of recent times with the COVID thing, the people are now not really looking to get on public transport. They want to get off public transport, get on their own transport, and with the cars being too dear for all the aforementioned reasons, they are jumping on scooters and bicycles. But scooters, if they can, they will.
Yeah, yeah. And so, kind of moving on, after a few years, you kind of had this thought of creating the electric scooter, or the electric conversion kit for the scooters. But where did that idea really all start? What was it to do with the changes in London?
Well, going back a bit, I always try to improve the classic scooters. I mean, they're old, so they need a bit of helping hand to make them more reliable and more user friendly. So I used to take an old '60s Vespa, and I might put a newer Vespa's engine in it. So take a new engine and put it in an old Vespa. So you got that nice old looking bike with a new engine in it. And we did that a lot to make them a lot more reliable, a lot more user friendly. I mean, they aren't just an ornament. They were being used for fellas to go to work on, and they would jump on them and need them to go to work on every day. So they needed to be reliable. And that's what I did a lot. The shop did that for these old bikes, making them, improving them, upgrading them, suspension, electrics, everything was improved as best we could. But then along comes electric, and the world's, you can't deny it, the world's turning electric. And I seen that, back in 2017, where we were going that way. And I the idea isn't mine. It's everybody back then might have thought, well, it'd be great if we could get these, converted to electric, if only it was possible, and still keep that nice looking old bodywork, but have it under the bonnet, an electric propelled vehicle, so it can hang in there and move along with the times and keep it going for another 50 years. So quite a challenge that to do, but I had the right man that was a good friend and a scooterist that helped me get along with that. Mr. John Chubb. John was, he's actually a rocket scientist, believe it or not. He really is a rocket scientist. He was in the Navy, but he was more of a scientist, and he worked in the department where they did electronically guided missiles, and he worked on the electronics on them. So he was a bit of a whiz with the electrics. And of course, he's a scooterist. He came to me initially as a customer. Nice fella, got on well with him, became a friend, and down the years, I've known him 20, 25 years now. We used to go to scooter rallies, like the aforementioned scooter rallies and that. And well, one day, we were at a friend's stag do, and like you do, all best ideas born in a pub. We talked about this. I said I'd love to do an electric conversion to our classic scooters, and keep them going. And he goes, I think I'd like to give that a go. So I says, well, I'll help with let's do it. So I forgot about it. Next week he came into my shop and he says, are you serious about this? I said, John, you're the man to help me. And if you're doing it, I'm right there with you. So that was it. John went away, scratched his head, come up with this and that angle to take it on. But what really helped us is every year in Milan, there's a show for motorcycles, anything two wheels, and it's a big show. So I says, John, I think we need to go to this show and see if we can get some ideas out of it. And we flew into Milan, went to the motorcycle show, went over to a corner of the show where there was the Chinese, where the products that they were doing. So, by the way, the Chinese have been riding electric scooters for 15 years, long before any of us ever even thought of them. So these people know, they have been doing it already, and they have been riding them already, and they were selling these, parts for electric scooters. So me and John went to them boys, and we sat down and we talked batteries, and we talked all the different motors, and we John come away from it anyway, and he goes, I know what to do. I know I'm going to do it. So got home. We had the plan. We just need to cobble it together and see how it would work. So we got together. He done the electric side of things, and I done like the mechanical side of things, where we would bring it together in an old bike. And we chose an old Vespa, 1976 Primavera 125. And we worked on it over the winter of 2017. 2018, February the 5th, we had this little Primavera with this electric engine in it, and a bit of a rough, cobbled together battery and plugged in, and that from some bits and pieces that we had ordered off the internet from China. And from the boys that we met at the show, sent us over some stuff. And there you go. We were driving it up and down the front of the shop at the end of the day, and that was it. That was the concept, We knew what we were going to do then at that very time. We just had to, refine it.
Mm-hmm. And so, it was really about making it that you could do this to most scooters, or sell this kit that anyone could kind of work with.
Well, yes. So you've got a lot of different models. The main scooters being Vespa and Lambrettas. So on Vespa, you've got three different models. You've got a large frame Vespa and a small frame Vespa, and then you've got the really old frame Vespa, the wide mount Vespa. So that's three kits right there, three versions. And then Lambrettas, again, you've got Lambretta from the 60s, and then you've got Lambrettas from the 50s, and there are two types of Lambretta. So that's 5 kits. So I had to make 5 variants on it, but the same sort of concept. And I had to make 5 swinging arms and 5 battery trays and 5 different, ways of putting it in a bike. And what I concentrated on the one Vespa, the Vespa small frame, by the way, through that year of 2018, because I wanted to get it all fixed up and ready for a show that was the #1 show of that year for Vespas, which was called Vespa World Days. And they have it every year in a different country. And lo and behold, that year, 2018, was to be in Belfast, And I thought, this is brilliant. So I'm going home to show off this, unveil this at the Vespa World Days, where people come from all over the world to go to this Vespa scooter rally. And it was in Belfast. It was at the Titanic Centre, actually. And that was June 2018. So I packed everything in the van, and the scooter and the stalls and that, and went home to Armagh, spent a few days in Armagh, and then went up to Belfast for the show and showed it off, and showed it to all the boys from all the Vespa clubs from around Europe. There was Italians and Hungarians and Americans that flew over, from all over, and they weren't sure what it was or what was going on, and they was a bit skeptical to begin with, weren't sure about this. But then when I gave them a ride on it, in the car park at the rally, they drove it up and down, and they come back with a big grin on their face. They were flabbergasted that this old Vespa was electric now, and they just turned a key and twisted a throttle, and away it went, and it was fast as well, So really made a big impact there, and that was the start of it there. That was the unveiling. I unveiled it there, and I unveiled it at the time that you've got all the scootering magazines, international scootering magazines. Not that you might know them, Connor, but there are in the scene, all these magazines. So they all told everybody about this. In the scootering world, that is, these boys in London at Retrospective Scooters have just done this, So that was the first of it. And at the time, I must say, I didn't know you, Connor, but I was in Armagh with the electric scooter, and I had it, and I thought just before I unveil it at Belfast and the rest of them, I'm going to go down the street to see if anybody would be interested. So I walked in to the Gazette. I said, look, I'm from the town. I'm just home, blah, 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 for the weekend. I'm doing this show, and I've done this electric scooter. Would you be interested? I just want to say that I'm doing it and, tell you about it first. And they sent me down the mall with the photographer. They took a photo of me down the mall by the cannon there, and that was all right. And wrote a wee bit about me. Niall from the town here has done this, blah, blah, blah. And he's doing a show in Belfast. And that was it. It was nice to just do it, unveil it first and foremost with my hometown newspaper, if you like. And we don't.
And did you let any of the old gang have a go on it?
Tom was with me. Tom come up to do a video for YouTube on. We went up to the cathedral, and I wanted a nice backdrop, so went up to the St. Paddy's Catholic Cathedral and done it just there, a wee video off the bike and me driving it, me showing how it works, and then I got on it and drove off, and Tom done the video for me, and we released that on YouTube as well, and that's had a lot of hits. That's the first ever video of it. And Armagh's in the background, of course, Sherry's Field and the other cathedral, you can see it all there, and that was the first video I'd done of it as well. So I was very proud and delighted that all the unveiling of it was done in Armagh first and foremost.
Yeah. And obviously, had you really given a thought about how some people would react? The purists, if we should call them, perhaps.
Oh yeah, no. Look, I did a lot of shows after that, and you would get people, purists, as you call. Yeah, right. You're the very word. Purists would say, "Is that a real Vespa that you've done that to?" I'd say, "Well, yeah, that's a 1976 Primavera," and they go, "Oh, that's a shame doing that to that." And I go, "Well, why?" And they go, "Well, that's ruined it, hasn't it?" I said, "No, it's reversible. All of this can be reverted back to the old engine. So this electric engine I put in it just fits in the same mounting brackets as the engine that I took out. So if you want, you can put the old engine back in. I haven't cut it or welded or done any damage to it at all. All I've done is took the old engine out and I bolted this electric one in. Obviously, I put a new loom through it, but sure, no big deal. And added a battery and took the petrol tank out. But any of the bikes that I've done, the old engine's just, I give it back to the customer. He can keep it in his shed or wherever, and if he wants to, when he sells it or whatever in the future, put it back in. They can do that. A lot of people don't realize that the conversion that we do did not interfere in any way with the original settings of the old scooters. They are still the old scooter that they were, and they still are able to be reversed, and everything is as it was. And it looks the same and everything. A lot of people just don't get that. But, you can only shout about it so much, whoever's listening.
No, it's just, I suppose, a fear of change, really.
Oh, yeah, that too. And then a lot of them would say, no, I'm not doing that. They're a petrol head. I'm never going to do that. Well, that's fair enough. Whatever you want, But sure, when they get older and their old knees can't kickstart it anymore, or their old arthritic wrist can't change the gear on the old bike anymore, then they might turn around and get it. But, that's it until that day.
But it's going that way with cars, and I'm sure that, it's only going to go the same way with the scooters as well.
The other thing about this is until you really get a go on one, you don't know, you don't think about it so much, is it's unbelievably easy to ride one of these now. Whereas before, you had to go up to it and put the choke on. And then you have to kickstart it and kick it and kick. And it mightn't start for you and you might flood it. And then plumes of smoke and all the noise. And then you have to get on it. And then you're pulling in a clutch and twisting the gears to get it in gear. And then you're up and driving. And it's all that changing gear. And revving and that there, honestly, that there some people just can't do, and they never got a scooter because it was all just too much, and they were afraid of breaking down, and they can't start it, and they'd be embarrassed if they couldn't start it and all that. So all that is out the window now. With this
Yeah.
electric conversion, you walk up to it and you turn a key. In fact, you don't even have to turn a key. It's on a key fob. You press a button and the bike comes live, the lights come on, and you sit on it and you twist the throttle and you're moving, and that's it. It's like a big toy. Honestly, anybody could drive one now.
Yeah, yeah. Because that was the other was some of the big fears were also probably around how much distance you can cover or how long the scooter can last for. But as you were saying before, it's based, it's built to be able to be charged from your home.
Oh yeah, the other stipulation is that the battery is removable, and it's the size of a shoebox, and you can take it out of the bike, bring it into your house, plug it into a normal socket, and charge it up in your home. Or you can leave it in the bike if you've got a garage. If you're lucky to have a garage, drive into the garage and leave it in the bike and just plug straight into it while it's in the bike and charge it up. But either way, it's easy to charge. And the thing about any electric vehicle, well, especially the scooters and that, is the keys to owning one is charge as you go. So wherever you're going, I mean, let's not forget these scooters were only made to go around and about the area that you live in. You're not going to, cross, like I used to do, cross India or go to Scotland and one and back. You're not heading out the door every day to do a mammoth journey on one. You're going to work, you're going down the town, you're going around about and back again. You're never going more than 5, 10, 15, 20 miles really. And then you get to wherever you're going, whether it be work or a friend's house, wherever. And what do you do when you get there? You take the battery indoors and charge it, or you just plug in and charge it, or you return home and your home's back and you've only done 15 mile or 20 mile and you're back home again and you're charging up again overnight, and that's it. That's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when I left you off, you were doing quite well and sales were doing quite well when we were speaking last year. So how's it kind of gone since COVID and the pandemic? How has the business found it?
Well, from COVID started way last year in March, we're very lucky in that we're one of those companies that's the opposites happened to us. We've got busier because being a garage, we're allowed to stay open because people obviously they need their transport to get around, and there's a lot of key workers who are on scooters to get to work, and that's the reason we're obviously allowed to stay open, keep them on the move. During the harder times of the lockdowns, we would do free pickup and delivery for them, and anybody that needed service work and maintenance work, we would go out and pick them up, bring the bikes in, service them, do the repairs, bring it back to them and give it to them so that they could keep on going to work on it, and getting around on it. And we never stopped. We were very busy the whole time. And during that time, when you had nothing else to do but work, and there was plenty of work to do, I really devoted myself to this project, and I refined it more, and I made it, I improved it, upgraded it, and one of the main things I wanted to do with it was to make it a kit that anybody could put in their own scooter themselves. I wanted to make it a very easy installation DIY kit. So because we were going to be selling it around the world, I mean, initially I thought I'd be just doing it at my shop. Obviously, people bring me their bikes or they wanted a bike done to convert it to electric. I would do it at the shop, but it turned out, and the way it is now, is it is a kit. You can buy it, you can have it sent to you, and you can put it in your own bike yourself. And it really is easy. And the whole year I've just spent was to refine it, to make it easier and easier for people to do it themselves. It really is. For the novice mechanic, now I'm talking about somebody that does have a wee bit of a turn and a spanner and a bit of an idea of doing it. But it is really easy. I'd say that, of course, but it is easy for somebody who's just a novice mechanic to do,
Yeah.
or a shop.
And that's
A shop could do it easy enough.
And I suppose that doing that also, as you said, that kind of opens you up to a bigger audience as well.
Well, yeah, this is it. I thought I'd be selling more to the Europeans, Germans and Italians and Spanish. But it turns out they've got far too much bureaucracy to allow them to have this. They're not allowed to. They've got too many government MOTs and laws and huge fees that really just put them off. It just the German lads are interested, Italian lads are interested, but they're all asking me, "Are we allowed this?" And I said, "I don't know. You need to sort that out yourselves." And they go away to their local German local DVLA office. "Oh, we want to put this over to electric. Is that all right?" "Oh, no, you can't do that. You have to go here and do this and fill out these forms and bring it down here. And these boys are going to check it. And that's not, good." And I mean, the kit is safe. It's reliable. It's safe. It's strong. It's proven to be that. But the way they're set up, they're giving these people such a hard time and high fees. In Spain, one of the lads was being asked to pay over 1,000 or 2,000 euros to get this inspection done for it, which is ridiculous, really. In here, we just have to send off the logbook, and I write a letter to say, "Look, this has been changed over to electric from petrol," and I just tick the box, and the DVLA sent it back saying, "Yep, that's all right. There you go. It's now electric." And that's it.
Yeah.
Same in America. Same in Australia.
Yeah.
We're selling a lot to America, Australia. Sweden's been okay. Lots of places, mainly America, though. They're quite easygoing as well, and they're all doing it over there.
Yes. And so, is it are scooters a big thing over in America then?
Well,
as well.
Yeah, no. Look, as I said, everywhere got scooters. There are Vespas and Lambrettas in every corner of this planet. Jamaica, Peru, they made them in Colombia. Indonesia and Southeast Asia is just awash with Vespas and Lambrettas, especially in the 60s in Vietnam, Malaysia, Australia, America. They all had it. They all had loads of Vespas. And America, yeah, I know it's a big country and they usually have the big cars, but no, they a lot of cities in California, New York, Atlanta, they're all over. They had lots of Vespas there as well, and Lambrettas.
Yeah. And so, is there any other big plans next? Is there anything in the pipeline or anything that you really kind of want to do now that you've refined that down moving forward?
Well, I have refined it. I've got the kit refined where I've got all 5 models of Vespa and Lambretta down to a T. The kits are there. I sell the kits. I send them out. I've got more fellas working for me now putting these kits together. And if anything, like little things like they're now keyless, and now we wait for technology. The good thing about the kit is as technology progresses, the battery boxes that we made that fits in our scooters, inside the batteries can be changed over to whatever comes next. If they make a better quality battery, they make a faster charging battery or a battery with more range, then we just open up our battery boxes and change the internals for the new part that they find.
Yeah.
Everything's set up already, for electric power. Yeah. So we're just waiting for whatever comes along next. I mean, we've improved little bits and things. Faster charging, keyless, and easier installation of the kit. That's what I've been working on lately. So that's all improved. Yeah. And if I could mention something else, I am having a little bit more fun with, for instance, it's not just Vespa and Lambretta that was around in the 50s and the 60s. There was lots and lots of other manufacturers of scooters back then. Triumph, Harley Davidson, Capri, BSA, NSU, Henkel. Everybody had a go at making a scooter back in the 50s and the 60s. All these old scooters now, they were they were rendered like useless because you can't get parts for them now. They're no good, and not, they're too old or slow, and you can't get the parts. But now with this kit, now I can put this conversion kit in any of those old scooters. I mean, I have to redesign a little swinging arm for it, but the concept of what I've made is able to fit in any of those bikes. So I'll get an old, like I've done an old NSU Prima from 1959. I've got it in. I took the old motor out. I couldn't get parts for it. I designed the swinging arm. I made it. I put that in with the new electric motor. I hooked up some batteries. I made some battery trays, very easy to do. And off it goes again. I mean, it hasn't been on the road since 1964. And there it is, running around London again after all those years, and it's being used as an everyday bike to get a fella to work.
No, because that's the thing as well, bringing those bikes back to life. But did you ever, as you said, you kind of had this bit of an idea about doing it, but did you ever think you would go ahead and you would be doing this now, even 5 or 10 years ago?
No, 2017, what's that, 4 years ago. I mean, from that day until, my buddy John walked into the shop here and said, do you want to do this? Then, until then, without him, I thought, no, I really couldn't attempt it by myself. I do need John with me for this. So before that, no, I didn't see this coming, really. It would have been a nice thought, but it wasn't possible without John.
Yeah. I suppose we're coming to the end anyway, I think. But I just kind of wanted to speak to yourself and ask: is there any plans to get back to Armagh then once everything is back to some kind of normality? Back to see friends and family then?
Well, yeah, it was this time last year, Connor. I think when just after we spoke, I was saying to you, I was going to be home for St. Paddy's Day on the 17th of March.
Yeah.
And you know what happened 4 days after that? I didn't get home. I'm trying to get home now. The 12th of April's looming. And after that, I think I'll try and get home to Armagh for, I think, end of April, May sometime at least. And it'd be great just to see everybody again, friends, family. Obviously, my mum's back there, my brothers, and all the boys and that. So really looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Have you been doing many Zoom calls or anything like that?
Yes, Zoom's been great, hasn't it? For family, Christmas and Easter and birthdays, and even just to see each other and on the screen. And my sister was doing quizzes. You just have a family quiz. It's just a laugh. We're all sitting just at home relaxing. You may have a drink and a laugh, and see nieces and nephews as well. It's nice to see them on the screen.
Yeah.
But that's been good for everyone. I'm sure it's the same thing, seeing their relatives on Zoom.
No. Look, Niall, I think we've pretty much hit every point. But I just wanted to thank you again for taking a bit of time out to chat to me.
Thank you for the opportunity, Connor.
That's no bother.
It's I love Armagh. I miss it. I know I don't live there anymore. I've moved on. I've got a wife and we're over here now. And but I'll always go home, and I always will. My family home's still there, and all the extended family still there as well. So my heart's still home in old Ireland, as I say.